So I have an example already out. It was, it's been awarded. This was the title of it. Audiovisual Upgrade, Gainesville, Florida. Okay, and the codes were T016, and the NAICS code was electrical contractors, which is interesting. But they probably use that NAICS code because there is some wiring that goes on. What a scope of work looks like, which applies to your business model. Remember number 4? That's your business model. You have to get that business model together. So this is an actual solicitation. I always talk to you guys about the scope of work. And you, when you're building your template, these are the things that you're going to address. I mean, we got a little ways to get to that part, but I just want to tell you, you're going to build a template for something like this. So this is a 1449, but they could look a little bit different. Normally, you see this box right here, 12, it usually looks different. It's usually where we put the name and telephone number and the company name and all of that. So this one is a little bit different, but you should know if you don't fill out the 1449, you could lose the contract. You do need to give them your name, your company name, your information, your city, state, and zip code, because the contracting officer's information is over on this side. Now, this is usually down further, but that's okay. This is an area where after you've done your pricing, you would come back, and we won't have time to go into this in detail, but I want you guys to know what you're dealing with and what this process looks like. But after you've done your pricing, you would come back and put that information in here. The unit price, which is, so if the government asked me for 1,000 chairs, what's my price per chair? Some of you guys have done local solicitation, so you know what I mean. What's my price per chair? And then I said it's 1,000 chairs. What's the full price of the unit times the number of chairs? You would just put that right here. And sometimes they'll explain to you what they're talking about over here. Now, this was just a quick contract. It wasn't, it doesn't look like it was a 4-year. So this one is a one and done. It included services and product. A lot of times the service contracts, they want you to include product too. So they might ask you to bring the equipment. They might ask you, how much is that going to cost if you bring the equipment, things like that. Now down here, also this is still the 1449. They want the name of the quoter. This is all of that other information was the general company information, but they want the name of so I could let someone on my team sign for me, whoever's doing the quoting. Okay, so the name, physical address of the company, and you should use the address that is in your SAM always. And then here is your signature. Okay, so you're going to use something like Adobe or GovCon to upload this document and complete it. Print or type your name. And where do you sign? You would sign right here. Now, if you don't sign, you could lose the contract. Okay, sometimes they want you to give them a time limit for the pricing. Sometimes they might say, I need this pricing to be good for 60 days. You need to put a disclaimer when you do that to say, I can make my pricing good for 60 days because of the service part, but you cannot always make your pricing to stay the same for 60 days when it comes to the equipment. That can change. So you need to put a disclaimer there. What you want to do, and I teach you this with my hit list, what you immediately want to do once you look at the dates and say, okay, I can do this date. Okay, I like this. I'm going to go for it. The first thing you want to do is go to number 4. B2, number 4, page 4. You always want to look and see if there's a table of contents, because if you have the table of contents, you can go right to the source of the table of contents, the page, I should say, and read the performance work statement. And remember, that can be worded different. Okay, so let's go to page 4. And remember, sometimes the pages are different than what they look like. So this is actually page 4. And this solicitation might look, remember, a little different than your industry, but legally, they all have the same requirements when it comes to you must be in SAM. They might look a little different, but they have the FAR information in there, or they make statements about certain things. But most of the solicitations are not more than 27, 30 pages, most of them. Okay, so here they tell us what they want us to do overall. So they tell us who this is for, like who we're going to be working with, but they're saying this USGS seeks to obtain a new AV system in the auditorium. So you know it's going to be in their auditorium, you know, and I have some people that do AV. So, and I did this with them too. I made them walk through the business model, because I'm saying, okay, so you have a team of people that can do this AV. Are you going to fly them to Florida? Write this down, because I'm going through this with them. They may not think about this. Or do you want to hire a team that's already in Florida? Because you could find someone to do this AV. So also they're saying they're requesting a Microsoft Teams room modular conference system. So let's say you can do the AV part. This is what I mean about business model. And you get to learn very quickly on your feet that you can do this, but some parts will need to be subcontracted out. Maybe we do the AV, but what are they talking about? We don't do modular conferencing system. I know what he's talking about, but I don't do that. You don't just give up the contract because you don't do that. That's something that you write down as part of your business model, and you go and see if you can find someone to do that, or you assign someone to do that. The goal of this project is to simplify our current setup and increase ease of use. So do you see that? They're telling us a lot in this short sentence. So if you are an AV company and you want this contract, you need to pay attention to wording like that, the goal. A lot of them are not this clear. Their goal is they must be frustrated with how things are working right now. They want you to make it easy. This is the difference between someone that just goes to throw something together and a company that will train them. Maybe you put in training, even if they don't ask for it. These are the differentiators that could help you win the contract. Okay, so let's go down a little bit further. General requirements. They're telling us what we're going to need to do exactly. Now, something like AV needs a project plan. And I know AV people, they do have project plans. But these are things that if you're the boss, you're trying to decide, or you have someone trying to decide, you're going to take notice of all of these things, because more than likely, unless we find below, more than likely they want you to buy these things. Sometimes they want you to buy the projectors. Sometimes they want you to provide the monitors. And so what do you do with that? Because you're an AV company, you have equipment already. You have people that sell you equipment. You go to your suppliers, you identify these products, and you're going to get a price, the best price, but you're going to mark this product up. You're not just going to mark up your services or give them a price for your services. You're going to mark up this product because you went and got it. You need to negotiate it as best you can. When you mark up product like this, it could end up being pure profit. These are the other things they're telling you need, but they're also telling you what to do. Use HDMI input, all of that. So let's go down a little bit further. And some of you with your service contracts, it could ask you to buy these things. Or some of them will turn it into a product contract and they just want you to buy the items and sell it to them. And they take care of the rest. But most of the time, they want you to do these kinds of things. Microphones, audio input USBs. This is a nice size contract. And you will see how much this contract was awarded for. And it looks like so far, it's still a short term, like a go get it done and you're done contract. Projector screens. And so a lot of these audiovisual people do have project management people. The project manager would look at these items and they would work with, this is how we do it too. We do a lot of project management because we have to know how things are going to flow. We have to know what has to be bought ahead of time, things like that. So the project manager would give the person that is doing the proposal the information to put this together. Now, I have some clients, they don't have a project manager yet, they were starting out by doing this, I had to tell them, okay, so you are the expert in this, but I can tell you what this needs to look like. Okay, so they're giving you all of the requirements. They're telling you everything that you need to do. This one is a little bit more complicated. Some of them are simpler than this. I've seen some where they're just asking for 4 or 5 pieces of equipment. They want you to come and just set it up, send your people there, they set it up and they leave. So this one is a little more complicated. There's a lot of equipment involved in this. There's setting up mics and setting up all kinds of computer attached things. Look at this, satellite monitor. Yeah, this is pretty serious. This is more complicated, but this is what you need to look at, okay? And then you need to look at what they want you to do when it comes, because all of this is part of the scope of work. Some of yours won't be this big, but you need to go through this document and highlight it. You need to go through the document and write down your questions. And then you go through it again. So what are they telling us here? It looks like they're telling us here under the technical liaison. Now this could happen to you. It happens to us. They want one of your people to be the contact. I had to, a couple of times tell my COO, you need to include my sales administrator in this contract. Now, I'll tell you this, if you have to use subcontractors, that could be a little iffy. I would not use a subcontractor to be a liaison or to communicate with the core, the contracting officer in my business. I wouldn't do it. Unless they had a contract, a non-compete, then okay. So that's it. That's all of the stuff for the scope of work. So what we would do is we would build a business model, and the business model, the government won't know all the details, you will. The business model will help you execute when you get this contract. That's what it's for. It's to do contracts like this. Now, when you get down here, the reason I stopped is because the rest of this is just contract stuff that you should read. You might have to build them. Sometimes they don't even tell you what invoicing system to use except on their side. You could, in some cases, use a spreadsheet to bill them for the cost. You could ask the contracting officer, is there a way, do you have an invoicing document that you would like us to use? A lot of times they don't on the service side, but you have to submit it to a special system. Okay, they tell you what system it's in, but the rest of this is just really contract jargon, having a deal with the federal government. This is part of your contract. So when you submit this, you add your other information in with this. It's your contract, your pricing, your offering, your technical capabilities. Now, what would I do with a contract like this? This is what I've done with other of my AV business entrepreneurs. First of all, I tell them you need to create a list of all of the equipment that they want, put it in a spreadsheet, and then after you're done doing that, you need to go to your suppliers and get costs for all of this. Now, what's interesting is if I had some questions, I would have asked them, well, what kind of projector screens do you want? They didn't say what kind. So you could get the cheapest, you can get the most expensive. It's up to you. That's why you would want to ask that question. Okay, so they would take all of the details for all of the equipment, and there may be even some things on here that the government did not, the buyers, the federal buyers, contracting officers did not put in here. Now, one of the first things I would do also is I would go and look and see if this was a contract before. Who did their first setup to see if there's some pricing. The other thing I would do is once they got the equipment list together, you start talking with the suppliers, and then you get the pricing, and then you mark it up. And then you work with yourself or whoever to figure out what does the process look like. We need to go to their facility. We need to send somebody there. Should we hire somebody that's already in Jacksonville, or should we send one of our people? Sometimes it's cheaper to send your own person or one of your own. And this is a case where maybe you have a subcontractor, an independent. We call those independent contractors. They work for you. You have an agreement with them, but they're independent. And you don't have to pay them you don't have to pay payroll taxes for them. They pay their own taxes, but you could do that too. You could hire an audiovisual expert. But you need to be careful about that. You need to make sure you're hiring someone competent, and you need to make sure they're not going to mess up your contract. That's the only thing I would say about that, but you could do that. It's probably cheaper than hiring a subcontractor because they're going to evaluate you based on specific things. That's the other thing federal is very good about. They tell you what they're going to evaluate you on. So that's page 27. Okay, so when you are working with me, I tell you, use the hit list. Once you decide that you want to do this contract, you need to look at the dates and all of that. But the next thing you want to do is find this. Sometimes they don't have one. I'm not going to kid you. Sometimes they don't, but you want to find the table of contents. And then when you find the table of contents, you want to find instructions to offerers. That's going to tell you everything you need to do. That's very important also. So that's number 13. You go to the instructions. You want to make sure they're not asking you to do something that you cannot do. So you have offerer representations and certifications. That's actually at 13. Also 12 and 13. So 12, 13, and then you have down here E4, which is instructions to offerers. Number, what is that? Is that 27 or 26? Page 26. So it's all right in the same area. So let's go to first instructions to submit proposals. That would be 26, and then probably evaluation is right under that. So let's go to page 26 to look and see what they say. Those are the first things you should do before you start investing too much time in a situation, and you'll get faster at it. You'll see things that, will make you say, no, I don't want to do with that. That requires me to do A, B, and C, and I don't want to do that. Let me see. Okay, we're on 23, 24, 25, 26. With 26, let's look and see what they're telling us to do. They're telling us proposals shall be submitted via email. Nowadays, all proposals are submitted via email when you're dealing with SAM. So this is what I'm talking about, this part right here, E4.2.1, technical capability and approach. This is a little bit more of a complicated, I kind of said this. So they're telling you, what do they want from you with the technical approach? Each offerer shall provide a plan and methodology to perform the work. That's the business model and how you do things. Now you do need to make your business model fit the standards for this particular contract. Some things you may include, some things you may not include, but what is that based on? Your business model is basically a template for how you will operate. But when you're looking at individual contracts under the same industries for your template, you still want to acknowledge what's important to them. So they tell you what they're going to look for. Okay, so the methodology. The methodology is how you do your business. How would you handle this right out the gate? You don't need to tell them all your secrets. You don't need to give them a lot of or too many words, or like, sometimes they will tell you, well, no more than 15 pages. Sometimes they'll tell you, they didn't tell us here. Or did they? No, they are telling us some things. Vendor shall include product documentation of its products compliance with specifications. This one is a big one. I've seen some small ones like this, a couple $100,000, but this is a big one because you know what they're saying? They want you to take all of those, which is not hard to do, it's just a lot of work. They want you to take all of those pictures of those items that you're going to purchase, the equipment that you're going to charge them for, and not give them the prices, but give them the documentation that goes with it. Okay, so that's one. And then past performance, looks like they do want you to have some, but we'll see how past performance is rated. So they're saying each offerer shall provide, you're the offerer, you are the offerer. Each offerer shall provide a minimum of 3, but not more than 20 references for similar work or the same work within the last 3 years. So let's say you don't have any past performance, but you've been in this business for a couple of years, you've done some assignments, or let's say you used to work for an audiovisual company. I would use that information to say, I would tell them the truth. You know, I have this skill set. I started my own company, and these are some of the projects I've worked on. I would name the companies. Maybe if you could get someone from your old company before you created your company. And what I'm telling you right now applies to any industry, any industry. You need to look at it exactly the same way. Okay. Now, also, now this is unusual. This down here, they ask for your company name, but the facility, well, sometimes they do ask. In my case, of course they do, but you know, I'm surprised to see that when it comes to something like this. They want you to, it says offerers shall submit the list with their quotes and proposals. Well, I would have told them to do that anyway, even if the government did not ask. Some things you should just do because you know other people are lazy and they're just not going to do these little big things. This is the description of what they want to know about your company. Like this total contract value, this could be a contract that you worked on before. Let me see if they want you to use it. Yeah, this almost looks like this is the part that they want you to use right here, these four. Yeah, this is for your past performance information specifically. And they do ask these questions. So if you had four, well, they said a minimum of three. Well, minimum of three. So let's say you only did three. You would give three companies with this information. So you would have three different sections on your past performance sheet with this information. Okay. All of this is the rest of your information. Warranty information means they need to know how long does this proposal last? And it also means, or it could also mean something else. It could mean what's the warranty information for the equipment. So warranty could be for you, and not just how long this proposal lasts, but it can mean a few things. It could mean how long your pricing is going to last on this. The service, what's your warranty on the service? Is it a year? Is it 2 years? Or is there a warranty at all? And then they want to know for the equipment also. As an example, some of you won't even have any equipment that you're dealing with. Last thing, past performance. Past performance is first. So why do I look like that? Because this is a stricter one. This one is strict. Past performance is first. That means they might have had somebody to mess up the other situation. If past performance is first, and I would still use the example that I gave about you worked in the business, I would still use past performance as the example that I gave you about you worked for another company. Maybe you just started your own company. You know why? Because it's about your skill set. Now they might say, we're concerned about making sure that your people know what they're doing, because you could be good at it, but it doesn't mean your people are good at it. So what you would do is just let them know how you manage your projects. There are things you can do to not be intimidated by some of the things that may seem like they're a block. Okay, I got a couple of questions. Can you have the possible teaming partner visit the site before you give a quote? Yes, but Linda, I would make sure that you have a NDA with them. But yeah, so this is past performance first, which can be a little scary, but if you have the experience personally, I wouldn't let that scare me because you could still win. Now, your past performance also means you need to demonstrate the technical approach. That's your business model. How would you take your regular business model? How do we normally do things? So they want to know, how do you run your business? And then price. So this one is different. It really is. It's a little different. They don't usually look like this. The one that I saw was technical approach first, price, and then past performance.